just for a second, that you're standing right at the edge of your city.
Okay.
You can feel this intense heat radiating off the sand.
Right.
And behind you is, well, literally everything you know.
Your entire world.
Exactly. Your home, all the wealth you've spent your life building, your family history, your social identity, and you're about to walk away from all of it.
Just step right into an unforgiving desert.
Yeah. And you are making this huge, irreversible choice based entirely on a promise of something you can't even physically see. I mean, it's just a staggering premise to try and wrap your head around today.
It really is. It completely defies our modern sensibilities.
Yeah.
Like, we are so wired for safety nets today.
Oh, absolutely. We want guarantees.
Right. We want immediate returns on our investments. We want like a detailed itinerary before we even book a weekend trip.
Yeah, let alone abandoning your whole life.
Exactly. So to willingly sever every tie to your past and just walk into the unknown well, it requires a level of absolute conviction that is really hard for most of us to even compute.
And that immense level of conviction, that's really the beating heart of today's deep dive.
It really is.
Because we are exploring the sources from a deeply moving lecture series titled The Life of Prophet Muhammad, the legacy of the greatest man who ever lived.
Such an incredible narrative.
It is. Yeah. And specifically, we are zooming in on this pivotal historical turning point, the Road to Madina, which is known as the Hijra.
The Great Migration.
Right. We're going to unpack the mechanics of how an entire community basically orchestrated this massive secret exodus right under the noses of a really hostile elite and, the incredible human toll it took to pull that off.
Yeah, because to really understand the stakes of this exodus, we have to look at the socio-political pressure cooker that Mecca was at the time.
Set the scene for us a bit.
Sure. So the early Muslims weren't just facing, like, a polite ideological disagreement.
Right, it was at a debate club.
No, not at all. They were facing systemic, brutal persecution. For years, the Prophet's message posed this direct existential threat to the Meccan elite.
Because of the economics, right?
Exactly. Mecca's entire economy, their whole power structure, was built around the Kaaba and this lucrative polytheistic pilgrimage trade.
So a message of monotheism just completely threatens to topple their economic dominance.
And their social hierarchy, yeah.
So the tension is at an absolute boiling point. I mean, staying in Mecca means continued torture, marginalization, or just death.
It wasn't sustainable.
Right. But over in the city of Medina, which is what, roughly 280 miles to the north?
Yeah, about that.
A massive shift has happened there. The groundwork has been laid, and the sources tell us there is barely a house left in Medina that doesn't have at least one believer in it.
It's an incredible demographic shift.
So the believers in Mecca need to get to Medina. But it's not like you could just pack up a caravan and openly march out of the city gates.
Oh, definitely not. The Meccan elites would have absolutely slaughtered them to prevent a rival power base from forming over there.
So how do you do it?
Well, the transition had to be this masterpiece of covert coordination, and the only way to pull off a secret alliance of this magnitude was to use, basically the ultimate camouflage.
Which was the Hajj season, right?
Exactly.
Now wait, let's clarify this for the listener, because Hajj is an Islamic pilgrimage. So why would they be hiding among non-believers during an Islamic pilgrimage?
That's a really crucial piece of context, actually. At this point in history, before Islam was firmly established as a state, the Kaaba in Mecca was surrounded by idols.
Oh, right.
Yeah, the Hajj was originally this massive polytheistic Arabian tradition. Tribes from all over the Arabian Peninsula would just flood into Mecca for this annual festival.
So it's basically tourist season.
Exactly. You have this chaotic influx of thousands of tourists, merchants, pilgrims, and the Muslims from Medina, there were over 70 of them, they used this massive crowd as a smokescreen.
That is so smart.
Right. They traveled completely embedded within a much larger group of non-believing pilgrims from their own tribes.
Wow. So their polytheist relatives literally had no idea.
No idea at all. They had no clue that a secret faction within their own ranks was organizing a clandestine rendezvous with the Prophet.
That is just brilliant tactical espionage.
Yeah.
Literally hiding in plain sight.
It really was.
But, before anyone is going to upend their life and risk execution for a secret alliance, there has to be a bedrock of absolute trust.
Oh, for sure. You don't risk your life for a stranger.
Exactly. You don't make that leap for an abstract idea. You make it for a leader you deeply believe in. And the way that trust was cemented, it's perfectly captured in the story of Kaz bin Malik.
Kabab.
Yeah,
Yes, his story is amazing. He was among this covert group from Medina, and he was a renowned poet.
which was a big deal back then, right?
Huge. In 7th century Arabia, poets were the media. They were the broadcasters, the propagandists. They shaped all public opinion.
So Ka'b arrives in Mecca, and he is brought to meet the Prophet in secret for the very first time. And he's introduced simply as Ka'b.
Just his first name.
Right. And before anything else can even be said, the Prophet's immediate response is, "Do you mean the poet?"
And Cobb later recorded that he would never, ever forget that specific statement for the rest of his life.
I really want to focus on why that hits so hard. Because this isn't like going to a convention and having a celebrity recognize your fan art,
Right, the stakes are a bit higher here.
Just a bit. This is a life or death resistance movement. It's like being a grassroots operative, and you finally arrive to meet the supreme commander of a dangerous rebellion.
You expect to just be a number on a roster?
Exactly. Just another nameless soldier. But instead, the leader looks at you and instantly recognizes your specific individual contribution to the cause.
It's the ultimate display of emotional intelligence. I mean, it proves the Prophet wasn't just recruiting a faceless army. He was cultivating real individual relationships.
He had done his homework.
He had. He'd been paying attention to the specific skills and identities of the people in Medina long before they ever even sat in the same room.
And when a leader truly sees you like that, when they validate your craft without you having to bring it up, it just fundamentally alters your psychological commitment.
Absolutely. You shift from being just a casual supporter to being an absolute zealot for the mission.
Which perfectly sets the stage for what happens next, because that psychological commitment is about to be tested in, well, the most extreme way possible.
The midnight meeting.
Yes. We move to the dead of night. The climax of this secret pilgrimage is a midnight meeting at a place called Al-Aqaba. And you really have to picture the intense paranoia of this moment.
Oh, the tension must have been unbearable.
Over 70 people sneaking out of their sleeping camps, moving through this dark valley in ones and twos so they don't wake up their polytheist tribe mates or, elude the Meccan patrols.
Just shadows in the valley.
Right. So they finally gather. The Prophet arrives, but he doesn't come alone. He brings his uncle, Al-Abbas.
Now, this is one of the most fascinating political dynamics in the entire narrative.
Wait, hold on, because this makes zero sense from a security standpoint. Al-Abbas was not a believer at this time.
No, he wasn't.
So if this is a top-secret escape plan, where any leak means mass executions, why on earth would you invite an outsider to the single most sensitive meeting of your life?
It seems totally counterintuitive, right? Until you look at the mechanics of Arabian tribal law.
Okay, unpack that for us.
Well, in 7th century Mecca, there was no centralized police force. The only thing keeping you from being murdered in the street was the threat of the jawar system, basically, tribal protection.
Right, your clan has your back.
Exactly. Your blood family was obligated to avenge you, regardless of what your personal beliefs were. So Al-Abbas was there, acting as the patriarch and representative of the Banu Hashim clan.
Ah, I see.
Yeah. Even though he rejected his nephew's religion, he was bound by deep familial duty to make sure his nephew wasn't walking into a trap.
So blood was thicker than belief. Al-Abbas is basically acting as a high-stakes defense attorney here, interrogating the people of Medina.
Precisely. In fact, Al-Abbas actually speaks first at the meeting. He essentially puts the Ansar, the people of Medina, on trial.
What does he say?
He tells them, look, Muhammad is protected here in Mecca by his family. If you are taking him, are you truly prepared to defend him? Because if you are going to abandon him when the swords come out, leave him here with us right now.
Wow. And the Ansar, they aren't naive. These are people with generations of military experience.
I know exactly what this means.
Right. They know offering asylum means an economic blockade. It means going to war against the combined might of the entire Arabian Peninsula.
Yeah, and one of their leaders even stands up to confirm the brutal reality of this pact.
What's his response?
He says, if we take you, we might lose our wealth. Our leaders might be killed. But if we fight and we win, are you just going to return to your people and leave us behind?
And the Prophet's response to that anxiety is incredibly revealing.
He really is.
He tells them, your blood is my blood. Your destruction is mine. I am of you, and you are of me. He is irrevocably severing his political ties to Mecca and anchoring his entire earthly fate to Medina.
It's a massive statement of loyalty.
So the gravity of the alliance is set. It is a lifelong life-or-death commitment. And then comes the absolute climax of the negotiation.
The ultimate question.
Yes. The Ansar look at him and they ask, we are giving up everything. We're risking our families, our trade routes, our lives. What do we get in exchange?
Now, in any conventional political negotiation, this is the moment you offer the cabinet seats, right?
Exactly.
You offer the division of treasury wealth, the regional governorships, you pitch the tangible return on investment.
Right, like you get to be my Minister of Defense. But the prophet just gives them a one-word answer. Paradise.
Just paradise, that's it.
No earthly kingdoms, no decession of political power, no guarantees of material wealth whatsoever.
And their reaction to that is what elevates this from just a historical footnote to a truly awe-inspiring event.
Because they enthusiastically accept the terms, they literally call it a profitable deal, and they stated they would never ask to cancel it.
They weren't looking for a transactional payback in this world at all.
No. They had completely internalized the spiritual reality of the trade they were making.
But you know, agreeing to a terrifying deal in the adrenaline-fueled dark of night is one thing. Actually executing that mass exodus in the harsh, glaring light of day is another thing entirely.
Oh, for sure.
The Meccan elites realized what was happening, and they did not let their workforce, their family members, and their rivals just leave quietly.
And this transition from the macro politics of the midnight meeting to the micro realities of the actual migration, this is where the history becomes intensely, deeply emotional.
It's heart-wrenching.
Executing this escape meant individuals had to physically dismantle their own lives. Take the story of Salama, for example. Her experience is one of the most agonizing accounts of this entire period.
Her story really shows the true brutal cost of the Hijra. Salama and her husband, Abu Salama, they decide to migrate with their infant son.
They pack up their camel. They are fully prepared to leave the city.
But as they are heading out, Salama's family intercepts them right in the street. And her clan tells her husband, "You can wander off to a foreign land if you want, but you are not dragging our daughter into poverty and exile with you."
And they physically assault them, right?
Yes, they violently rip Salama away from her husband.
And then the situation instantly compounds in horror, because the husband's family, Abu Salama's clan, sees this happening.
And they step in, absolutely furious.
Right, to declare, if your tribe is keeping her, then we are not letting you keep our bloodline. So the husband's clan forcibly tears the baby out of Salama's arms.
It's devastating.
In the space of 5 minutes, a family of 3 is shattered into 3 isolated pieces. The husband is forced to migrate to Medina totally alone. The infant is taken hostage by his paternal relatives, and Salama is essentially held under house arrest by her own family in Mecca.
The psychological torture of that is almost unfathomable. I mean, the sources describe her routine for the next year.
It's so sad.
Every single morning, she would walk out to a rocky valley on the outskirts of Mecca, and she would just sit on the rocks and weep from sunrise to sunset.
Every single day.
Imagine the sheer draining endurance of that grief. A year of staring at the horizon, mourning a fragmented family.
It's a testament to the raw endurance of the human spirit. And her grief was so visible and so unrelenting that it eventually wore down the societal barriers.
It did. One of her relatives finally saw her sitting out there in the rocks, recognized the absolute devastation they had caused, and advocated for her.
So her family relents and lets her go, and her husband's family finally returns her son to her.
But her nightmare still isn't over.
No, she has her baby back, but she now has to cross 280 miles of hostile, burning desert completely alone. It's just a mother and a child on a camel.
And this is where the story introduces a man named Uthman bin Talha.
Yes, and this encounter highlights something really beautiful about Arabian culture at the time. Uthman bin Talha was a polytheist. He was deeply embedded in the Meccan system that was actively oppressing the Muslims.
Politically and religiously, he was an absolute opponent.
Yet when he sees a vulnerable woman and child attempting this dangerous crossing alone, this much deeper, older code of Arab chivalry overrides his political allegiance.
He steps up and insists on personally escorting her all the way to Medina.
And the way he conducts himself on this weeks-long journey through the desert is just astounding. Salama later swore she had never met a more honorable man.
The level of respect is legendary.
Right. When the camel needed to rest, he would make it kneel, and then he would intentionally walk far away, like over the horizon, so she could dismount with absolute privacy.
And then he'd secure the camel and go sleep under a completely different tree in the distance.
Just think about the physical realities of that commitment. Walking through the brutal heat of the Arabian desert for weeks, taking on all the labor of the journey, while maintaining a strict, unyielding boundary of respect.
It really proves that even amidst bitter societal warfare, shared humanity, and deeply ingrained codes of honor could still cut through the animosity.
It's an incredible bright spot in a really dark time. But while Salama found a protector, others were systematically targeted
Yeah, the Meccan elites realized they couldn't always use brute force, so they pivoted.
to psychological warfare. Which brings us to the devastating story of Ayash.
Ayash's migration is basically a psychological thriller that ends in pure tragedy.
So Ayash manages to escape Mecca. He is traveling with Umar, who is known for being incredibly pragmatic and tough.
A very strong companion.
Right, and they actually make it to the outskirts of Medina. They are practically at the finish line. But Ayash's half-brother, a vicious opponent named Abu Jal, tracks them down.
And Abu Jal knows he can't win a physical fight against Umar.
So he deploys this incredibly manipulative tactic. He looks at Ayash and says, "Your mother has sworn a solemn oath. She promised she will not seek shelter from the burning sun, and she will not comb her hair until you return to her."
Now, to a modern listener, that might just sound like a cheap guilt trip. We might think, so what if she stands in the sun? But we have to understand the immense cultural weight of what Abu Jal was invoking here.
Exactly, because Umar sees right through it. Umar tells Ayash, "This is an obvious trap. They just want to drag you back. As for your mother, eventually the lice in her hair will get so bad she'll have to wash, and the blistering heat of Mecca will force her into the shade. Do not let them play you."
Umar was so incredibly rational about it.
He was. So help me understand the psychology here. If Umar is pointing out all the logical flaws, why does Ayash fall for it? Was he just naive?
It wasn't a failure of logic at all. It was the weaponization of his own empathy.
Ah, wow.
In 7th century Arabia, maternal bonds were sacred above almost everything else, and public oaths carried a paralyzing societal weight.
So it's not just a personal thing.
No, if a mother stood in the blistering Meccan sun until she collapsed from heat stroke, the entire society would place the shame and guilt squarely on the son. It would be an unbearable social and personal disgrace.
That's so twisted.
Abu Jal didn't trick Ayash's brain, you know. He placed his heart in a vice. He used Ayash's deep filial love, his own inherent goodness, as the bait.
That is so hard to hear. So, driven by that unbearable guilt, Ayash ignores Umar's advice. He agrees to ride back to Mecca just to check on his mother.
Such a tragic mistake.
Umar, still wary, gives Ayash his own incredibly fast camel and tells him, "If you suspect anything is wrong, run." But Abu Jal is a master manipulator.
He really is.
On the journey back, Abu Jal pretends his own camel is exhausted. He casually asks Ayash to let him ride behind him. And the absolute second Ayash makes his camel kneel to the ground to let his brother on, the trap springs.
Wait, ambush him.
Yes, they bind him tightly and drag him back into Mecca, not as a family member, but as a prisoner of war.
And once he was back in Mecca, the physical torture and the psychological pressure were just relentless.
He broke him down completely.
They did, until he and several others who had been captured essentially renounced their faith just to survive.
And the fallout from this wasn't just physical captivity. It created a massive psychological crisis for the entire community.
A huge crisis of faith and guilt.
Right. The Muslims who had successfully made it to Medina and the prisoners languishing in Mecca, they all came to this terrifying consensus. They believed that by yielding to the pressure, by staying behind or renouncing their faith under torture, these prisoners had committed the ultimate, unpardonable sin.
Think about the psychology of failure in our own lives today. When we make a massive mistake, our modern instinct is often to write ourselves off, right?
Oh yeah, we think we're permanently broken or canceled.
Exactly. Now imagine that feeling magnified by 1,000. These captives believed they hadn't just ruined their earthly lives, they believed they had completely forfeited their souls. They thought God had closed the door on them forever.
The despair was thicker than the chains holding them.
Truly.
But this is where the narrative takes a profound, really uplifting turn. A revelation from the Quran is sent down that directly addresses this exact crushing despair.
It speaks specifically to those who feel they are beyond saving.
The verse translates to, "O my servants who have harmed themselves, do not despair of God's mercy. Allah will forgive all sins. He is the all-forgiving, the all-merciful."
It is a complete paradigm shift. It shatters the human assumption that failure is final.
And Umar is sitting in Medina when he hears this verse. He instantly realizes who needs to hear it. He writes it down on a scrap of paper and manages to secretly smuggle it back into Mecca.
Which is incredible in itself.
Right. He gets it right into the hands of a man named Hisham, who was one of those detained and broken believers. Hisham takes this secret message out into a secluded valley. And the sources say he stood there, reading it aloud over and over again.
Just trying to process it.
Yeah, he is repeating the words, struggling to bridge the gap between his immense guilt and this promise of infinite mercy.
You can almost see the mental architecture of his despair just collapsing. He is reading a direct counter-argument to his own self-hatred.
Yes. The aha moment finally hits him. He realizes this verse isn't abstract. It was sent for us. It is not too late. He hasn't been abandoned by the divine.
That realization alone restores his agency.
Right then and there, he asks for forgiveness, finds a mount, and successfully escapes to Medina.
The underlying lesson of Hisham's escape is just the ultimate triumph of mercy over human despair. It is a stark reminder that no matter the magnitude of the mistake, no matter how deeply you feel you've compromised your values, divine mercy is infinitely more expansive than human failure.
Wow.
The only true, permanent defeat is the decision to give up hope entirely.
What an unbelievably rich historical tapestry we've unraveled today. I mean, we started with a covert midnight negotiation where individuals traded their physical safety for the unseen promise of paradise.
Such a legendary sacrifice.
And we witnessed the raw heartbreak of families torn apart by their convictions, the awe-inspiring chivalry of a political enemy, and the intricate psychological traps of a hostile society.
It really runs the full spectrum of human emotion.
It does. And it all culminates in the staggering realization that forgiveness is always waiting, even when you are convinced you are totally lost.
It forces us to look in the mirror, doesn't it? We live in an era defined by quick transactions and an aversion to discomfort.
We want guaranteed returns on everything.
Every investment of our time and energy, yeah. And we frequently just retreat at the first sign of friction. These historical accounts of the Hydra remind us of the awe-inspiring power of profound, unwavering commitment.
They show us what humans are capable of when they're anchored to a purpose larger than their immediate comfort.
Absolutely.
It fundamentally changes how you evaluate your own convictions. Which brings me right back to the image we started with. Today, we demand airtight guarantees for almost everything we do. We want the safety net firmly in place.
Always.
But imagine yourself standing at the edge of your city again. If you were asked to leave absolutely everything you own behind, to endure the desert and face the hostility of the world, all for a reward you could only hold in your heart, what is the one cause or the one truth you would make that trade for?